want to talk about Asperger's syndrome and the ability to learn. It seems as if we're not learning at first. We don't seem to learn the way other people learn. And so my learning was the same way. I thought I was actually not that smart when I was younger. Um, I didn't get very good grades in school, right? But the strange and screwy thing is that after I left high school, I got involved with a Cuban family, and I hung out in that family. Now, a lot of people go to school and they try to learn a foreign language, and it takes them 7 years to learn a foreign language. But after being around that house for a few months, tengo la habilidad de hablar español. Puedo hablar y entiendo. I have the ability to speak Spanish. I can speak and I understand. Y también, and also, puedo leer en el español. I can also read in Spanish. Well, the funny thing is that I didn't stop there. Je peux lire le français. I can read in French. Mon français c'est très mal, mais I speak French. I don't speak it fluently, but I speak it very well. I've studied my vocabulary. My vocabulaire est très bien. Je n'ai utilisé le long tous les jours. I don't use the language every day, but I have extensive vocabulary in my head. Ich kann Deutsch, ich lese der deutschen Sprache, ich lese Deutsch, aber, aber mein Deutsch ist schlecht, aber ja, ich kann Deutsch, ich lese Deutsch und, uh, und ich verstehe deutsche Sprache. Of course, languages do get kind of mixed up. Ma non posso parlare italiano. Aussi, je parle français, posso parlare italiano. I speak a little of this, a little of that, and you would say, well, how have you become fluent in anything? Well, it wouldn't take me very much to become fluent in one of them, but since my mind is jumping from one thing to the next, but the way I learn is different. I would love to do a video blog on how to learn a language, but also I want to do it on how people think, the psychology of Asperger's syndrome, all the way down to nutrition and anatomy. How do I learn things? Well, let me explain to you. I had I can get something like a part, something to assemble. Let's say a spreader. You know those things you push, on the lawn, right? I had a job once where somebody gave me a spreader in a box. But you see, they needed to make a display, so I had to put the spreader together. And what I did was, at first, it took me a long time to put the spreader together. And I got it together, and I don't know if it was perfect, but the second one I did became a little bit easier. All of a sudden, I started to develop a pattern. Then by the fourth or fifth spreader that I put together, I was throwing it together like that. So let's take a look at the first phrase that I said in Spanish. Tengo la habilidad de hablar español. La habilidad de hablar español, tengo. I have the ability to speak Spanish. Okay? To speak Spanish, I have that ability, or I have the ability. Y también posso parlare italiano. Posso parlare italiano bene. Posso parlare italiano non bene. See, what I will do is I'll start to go over something in my mind until I learn it. Like right now I'm studying, let's say, anatomy. And learning foreign language made me keen on learning other things, like the difference between proximal and distal, which is distal is like distant and proximal is like close. That the body has an axis, okay? And on that axis, okay, there are things that are closer to the axis and further away from the axis. So when you talk about anatomy, you're talking about proximity and distance, or distal or proximal, or so things. So that this way you can say that the eye, okay, is proximal to the nose, or the finger is distal from the shoulder. So now I've learned that somewhat. And then there's phraseology. There are tons of terms in anatomy. But then when you get into microbiology and you get into all of these little phrases and terms, now what you have to do is you have to be able to focus on one area. Like, what's an organelle? An organelle is a small little organ that's inside a cell. So you have a cell and you have the organelle that's inside the cell. And inside the cell, there's organelles like mitochondria. And so now you're starting to peel that onion back deeper and deeper and get more and more into the knowledge. And this is what people with Asperger's syndrome are very good at. This is why I may not have been able to learn algebra really well, but if I sat there and I went over the problems, not just like drills, but started to go and go, okay, this is the distributive property, da 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 da, and then do it. Well, do you know it backwards and front? And by the time you obsessively go over it, you've not only learned it, you've learned it well. And this is the capability that I have when it comes to learning things. But I also would like to be able to share this gift of being able to take something like a foreign language or a subject like math or even biology and start to take it apart so that this way we go step by step. Give you a good example. I'd study subjects and I'd always have books on me. But I would have 3 books on the same subject. 3 books on algebra. I'd read chapter 1 in one book, chapter 1 in the other book, and chapter 1 in the third book. So that this way I got 3 chapter 1s. And I go on to chapter 2. Chapter 2 in this book, chapter 2 in the other book, and this is going over chapter 1, going over chapter 1, going over chapter 1 in the 3 books, going back over chapter 1, going back over chapter 1, going back over chapter 1, over to chapter 2, and chapter 2 in this book, chapter 2 in this book, chapter 2 in this book, blah, 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 blah. And it's like rote learning, but at the same time you're into it. It's sort of like 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, 4 minus 4 is 2, or 6 times 7 is 42. 42 divided by 6 is 7. 42 divided by 7 is 6. So what you do is you're starting to take the numbers and you're starting to work them. You're starting to manipulate the numbers. So 6 times 7 is 42, right? What's 14 times 3? Well, half of 6 is 3, and double 7 is 14. So if we half 6 and double 7 and we multiply 3, if we multiply 3 times 14, we get the same thing as 6 times 7, 42. And so now what we're doing is we're starting to actually take information and own it. And this is where I want to go with a teaching video series. I actually do want to go to school to actually do learn how to do video, everything from lighting, everything from the psychology of memorizing and learning, but at the same time doing it in such a way where it becomes something that you get into. Nobody wants to get into something that they can't handle. Nobody wants to learn something that's hard for them to learn, that they can't get a hold of, that becomes boring, that becomes rote. And so educational video, I guess, is absolutely where I would love. Where actually I'm in the process of going to vocational rehabilitation because I'm retired right now. I can't hold a job because I have autism or Asperger's syndrome. I can't relate to people. So my only avenue is to be able to learn how to do video and do video well. Videos that teach, videos that give opinions. I would like to get into technical drawings and whatnot, but mainly being able to express myself is very important because people with Asperger's syndrome need to express themselves. Take care.